Residential mortgage rates continue to yo-yo. In fact, they're back down again, possibly driving demand in Portland metro real estate. But at the same time, sale prices are seeing the after effects from April's high interest rates, possibly pushing values back down. Let's do a quick run through of the very latest in stats and trends for Portland metro real estate. We saw a pretty big drop in the average sale price compared to the previous week. In fact, the average was down about 5%. We can see some pretty big swings in our week-to-week numbers. It's just the risk of dealing with a smaller set of numbers. That being said, I suspect that April's high mortgage rates, the highest that we've seen so far this year, they're putting some downward pressure on prices, and that's what we're seeing here, at least in part. So in our year-over-year numbers, if you recall, last week the average sale price was up about 5% over last year's number. Well, this week the average is down almost 4%, and that's a really big swing, which is due probably, at least in part, to the really high interest rates that we were seeing back in April. Buyer demand was down from last week's high. In fact, last week we saw the most number of purchase agreements agreed to by buyers and sellers so far this year. But we still ended up with a pretty respectable number, well, at least for 2024, that is. We landed toward the higher end of the range that we've been seeing over the last couple of months, and we're back to outpacing last year's demand numbers for the second week in a row. And that's probably due, at least in part, to the lower interest rates that we were experiencing last week in this. The supply numbers continue to grow. The number of homes coming to the open market each week is outpacing last year's numbers, and buyers still have about 41% more homes to choose from compared to last year at this time. However, that margin has been shrinking very slowly, but it has been shrinking over the last couple of weeks. As I mentioned at the top of the video, mortgage rates continue to yo-yo, and after some positive inflation reports this week, they dropped from a best case scenario last week of 6.625% for the 30-year fixed to 6.375% as of this morning. As always, if there are any big changes on Friday morning, I will post it just above my head here. Well, that's pretty much the long and short of it. If past trends hold true, we'll likely see some pretty decent buyer demand and pressure on sale prices, at least for the next couple of weeks. So whether you're buying, selling, or just nervous about your home equity, check in next Friday for the latest in stats and trends. Be sure to subscribe and follow to make sure that you don't miss any updates, and I will see you right here next week.